welcome back to the Men of Iron podcast. We're talking about faith in sports this month. So we have a very special guest, Kyle Snyder here today, Olympic champion, world champion, 3-time national champion. Hate to admit it, he wrestled for Ohio State if you're unaware of that, but no, we're glad to have you. So Kyle, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you guys. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks
Appreciate
for joining us today. And yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just give who is Kyle Snyder? Obviously everyone knows the wrestling, but just give us an update. Are you married, have kids?
Yeah. I'm married to my high school sweetheart.
Okay, high school. Okay, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
So, and she was my dream girl, actually. When I was a freshman, when I was a sophomore in high school, she was a freshman in high school. Okay. And I wanted to date her, but she had a boyfriend. Okay. So it took me 3 years. And then finally we started dating, and we have 2 kids. My son's name is Judah. He's a little over 2, and my daughter is 3 months old. Her name's Lila. So
okay. Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Any more do you think they're coming, or you guys gonna stick with 2?
Well, my wife is in medical school, so she's finishing her last year. And so we're hoping to be able to get her through medical school without having any more kids. But we'll see whatever God wills. I mean, we love kids so much, so I think we will have more, but we'll see.
Cool. That's awesome. That's exciting. If you weren't wrestling, which I know you spend a lot of your time either training, recovering, traveling for that, what do you do for any hobbies? What do you do to unwind or actually?
Yeah. Well, honestly, with 2 little babies, there's not a lot of time to unwind. It's I come home from practice and immediately my son Judah has so much energy, and he wants to race, he wants to wrestle, he wants to come here to the wrestling room. So, but I like to study the Bible. I like to talk to my family on the phone. I like, just competing in any way.
Yeah,
I like to
compete
sure. On the wrestling mat, but I also like playing ping pong.
Okay,
I like, whatever, playing cards, with my friends. So yeah,
cool.
That stuff.
Okay, nice. That's awesome. I think it's cool just to hear, because I'm just saying, people normally put people on a pedestal and stuff, and nice to know that you're just a regular guy enjoys playing ping pong.
Oh yeah, I love it. Yeah, ping pong. Honestly, ping pong might be my second best sport.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There you go. All right. If you ever run into Kyle Snyder out there, challenge him to ping pong.
Yeah.
Don't challenge him to wrestling.
Yeah.
So that's good. So yeah, if you could just give us a little bit of rundown of either your faith journey and your wrestling. So obviously they've been big parts of your outspoken in your faith. Obviously you've had the successful long wrestling career. Maybe just walk us through maybe tying them together. Maybe just a whole background from growing up in Maryland to just kind of how it's all kind of came together. I know it's kind of an open question, but your story.
Yeah, I mean, wrestling and faith are really connected to me. I think because through wrestling I found out who God was, and found out who Jesus is. And so, I mean, I started wrestling when I was 5 years old, and I wrestled, I played football. Those were the 2 sports that, I focused on, and I love playing sports. I always wanted to be the best at whatever I was doing. And I started taking wrestling seriously when I was in 7th or 8th grade. And I wanted to be an Olympic champion. I wanted to be a world champion. And around that time is also when I started to start getting really nervous before I competed. So that's kind of something that's stayed with me throughout all of high school and my freshman year of college wrestling. But kind of taking a couple steps back, I had a very good high school career, even though I was not competing with all the ability that God had given me because I was so nervous about losing and anxious about results. I still won a lot. I actually went 179-0 in high school. So
I think you did all right.
Yeah, I did good.
Yeah.
I had a lot of ability, you know what I mean? So I didn't have to be my best to beat everybody. I remember a lot of times I'd be in the car with my dad, and he'd be like, why won't you wrestle harder? Like, you're not wrestling as good as you can and stuff. And I'd be
So
winning.
he could tell that you were.
Oh, yeah.
That's why. Okay.
Coaches knew, my dad knew, and I was like, man, I don't know. I just can't overcome. Like, I can't stop thinking about being afraid of losing and being anxious about that stuff. So then I moved to the Olympic Training Center my senior year of high school because I had exhausted all the different training opportunities in the state of Maryland. And there's kind of where my faith started to grow, because the coaches there, Bill Zadok and Brandon Slay, were Christians. They had a Bible study on Thursdays with a guy named Gene Davis, who's a legend in the sport of wrestling and faith. He's been working with Athletes in Action for, I don't know, maybe 60 years.
Okay, dang. Okay.
Yeah, so he led the Bible study and taught it, and the coaches asked me to go, and I was like, yeah, I'll go. I mean, I want to be the best in the world of wrestling, so if you tell me this is going to help, then I'll go. So I started going. I'd never read the Bible before in my life, and I was like, wow, these stories are actually incredible. Like, I can't believe it. This little book that looks so boring and looks impossible to read, like, now, like, these actually have really cool stories. And so I kept going to the studies, and then I ended up going to Ohio State. So my freshman year, I was continuing to go to Bible studies. All throughout that time, though, I wasn't, I wouldn't say I was like fully committed to Jesus, being obedient the way that he wanted me to. It was just like something I was interested in, but I wasn't more committed to him than wrestling. Wrestling was my God for sure, and it was my identity, and it's all that I cared about. So I make it to the finals of the NCAAs my freshman year. I ended up getting pinned, and I wanted to be a 4-time NCAA champion. So for me, basically, I thought my life was over. Like, I was depressed. I wasn't eating or drinking or talking to anybody. And then about 10 days after that, I got a call from my strength coach, Neil Serafinas. Yeah, and he asked me a question. He said, well, Kyle, you know what you have to do now? And I said, no, I have no idea what I need to do. And he said, you got to commit your whole life to Jesus. You got to be more committed to Jesus than you are to anything else in your life. And I didn't even know how that was possible, because like, wrestling was my whole life. So I just got down on my knees that night and I prayed in my apartment bedroom when I was a freshman in college. I prayed that I'd be more committed to Jesus than anything else in my life. And he just started to slowly change my heart. And the first thing that I realized was that he showed me was that the most important thing about me is that I'm his child. It's not that I can win wrestling matches, and it's not that I'm good at sports or whatever,
Just
you know?
like the identity piece before
Yeah.
any activity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that revelation allowed me to actually compete to the potential that he had given me.
Is that the first time you actually felt like you were competing to that?
Yeah.
level? Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, just, it's kind of crazy because, you know, I took second at the NCAAs in March of 2015. In September of 2015, I became the youngest world champion in the history of USA Wrestling, you know? So I always tell people, I didn't get much stronger. I didn't get much better at technique. I didn't get much better conditioning. But what happened was I had a revelation of Jesus Christ, committed my life to him, and he allowed me to compete with all the ability that he had given me.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, thanks for sharing that story. And then since then, it's just like what have you done? I would say just to continue to have that mindset. I'm just like speaking from my own, like, if I got that, like, I think I would just have a ton of pride, or like, it'd be so easy to get wrapped back up into that identity piece. Like, what are some practical things, or like what, or maybe it was just like that one time and like it's been good since then, but like, how do you kind of fight against that identity piece or that pride piece? I think as guys, it's so easy to have, like, no matter what it is.
The biggest thing for me that keeps me humble and keeps me on track is studying the Bible, because it's just speaks to my heart, and there's really no room for arrogance.
Yeah.
when you're reading.
Yeah.
When I'm reading daily, I'm just like, yeah, it's not like, it's just the teaching is against that attitude. And when I graduated college, I was studying the Bible on my own and going to church and Bible studies and stuff like that all throughout college. But when I graduated college, I really wanted to know what the Bible said. And I was like, I don't have any classes anymore, so I need to find someone that can teach me the Bible. So I was like Googling Bible teachers, like trying to find someone. And I ended up just finding a guy who I went to some Bible studies he taught at. And he said, oh, yeah, I can disciple you. We can just meet on Zoom because I know you travel a lot. So went every Wednesday since 2018. I do a Bible study for about an hour and a half, 2 hours with this guy. It used to just be me and him, but now there's about anywhere from 10 to 15 other people that join. And it's been great and helped me when you have someone teaching you, because it's so hard. The Bible's difficult to understand,
Yeah.
I think people, and I think God makes it that way because he wants to know if you're committed, because I remember when I first started studying, I would open the Bible up and I wanted to read the whole New Testament. So I read one chapter a day and I'd finish reading a chapter and I'd be like, well, I don't even know what's going on here.
That's
But I think God blessed that, like, discipline and commitment that I had in wanting to know what his word says, and now he's given me a hunger to continue to study.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Men of Iron podcast. Men, are you ready for a game plan that transforms your life? If you find yourself searching for more or feel like your life isn't unfolding as expected, or maybe you're just striving to reach your fullest potential, we've created a Man's Game Plan to help you thrive. Man's Game Plan is a 5-session course designed by Men of Iron with the purpose of helping men develop a game plan for their core 5: faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances. A Man's Game Plan refreshed and redesigned for your men's group. Find out more at menofiron.org. And you kind of like alluded to it, like with this guy and some of the coaches, like, is there any other guys or like kind of what, I know it's probably invaluable in certain instances, but what have you taken from these other coaches or these mentors? Like, what has, like, them doing their job has allowed you to be who you are and be successful? Like, is there any other guys or like what are like the main characteristics or attributes like you've gained from them that has allowed you to be successful?
Yeah. No, I've had so many great coaches and so many great training partners that are Christians that keep me thinking the right way. And obviously I said my strength coach, the guy who's done Bible studies with, is named Don. Brandon Slay and Bill Zadok are still big, play a big role in my life and my coaching, in coaching me. And wrestling's a pretty unique sport because so many of the great wrestlers are Christians. So when I was first on the team as a 19-year-old kid, there was 28, 30-year-old guys that were Christians who I just was learning from all the time, watching them practice, training alongside them, listening to them speak. Like, I remember one time, like right when I got committed to the Lord, I was still like speaking however I wanted to, so I was cursing and saying stuff. And I was in the locker room one time and one of the guys was like, hey, you can't be talking that way if you're a Christian. And I was like, really? I didn't know that, And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I stopped doing it. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't be speaking this certain way. Like, if I say that I'm following the Lord, because it's not holy to speak that way. So like just good examples of people not being afraid to correct me. And I love being corrected. I want people to teach me, and I want to grow and mature into Christ.
That's awesome. That's sweet. And like just being around, like, not that you're an old guy by any means, but you're an older guy in terms of like the wrestling. Yeah. Like being around these guys here and being around the team, has there been opportunities for you to like kind of pass on some of that and like be that example? Like you were saying that these guys have been a huge example, like that these like 29, 28-year-old guys, like now you're doing that. Like, how do you try to live that out? Or, I mean, how does that kind of look like for you? Like whether it's doing the camp that we talked about earlier or Yeah,
I mean, I'm always looking for opportunities to talk about Jesus and to share how he's worked in my life. And I mean, that's really what it is. Like, just in my experience with faith in him and how faithful he's been to me and how loyal he's been to me and how merciful and loving. And so by the grace of God, I have a great zeal for what he wants me to do right now, which is to be a wrestler. And that will change in the future. I mean, surely. But right now I know he wants me to be a wrestler. So everything I do is enthusiastic, and I want to give 100% effort, and I want to have a good attitude and work hard because I'm learning about him through everything. And then that opens, just the way you live opens up opportunities to talk about what I've learned about Jesus.
For sure. Yeah, thanks. And that zeal you talked about, and like I know, like you said, like there's like a rootist, like a little like 5 like you like about like your dream and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, when did you know that you're like, man, like I know you said you only came to your faith more like when you said a freshman in college.
Yeah.
When did you know like, yeah, like this like I know some guys like struggle with like, oh, like what am I supposed to do? What's God called me to? Or yeah, even without God, like what am I supposed to do? How'd you like yes, I'm gonna be this wrestler? How do you maintain that? Yeah.
Yeah, it was, well, first, I think ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be the best at everything. So, like,
and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's
yeah.
like God, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I don't know why that is. And I just always wanted to be the best. And so then when I started wanting to be better at wrestling, I was like, well, what's the best thing you can do? And it was being an Olympic champ and a world champ and an NCAA champ. I just had the idea like, oh, I don't just want to do that. I want to be the best ever and the most winningest ever and compete the longest. And that was even before I had faith, that was all just about my own glory. But now when I've come to faith, I just am still focused on getting better at wrestling and practicing and training and all that stuff. But there's a bigger goal and everything, which is first and foremost, I need to know Jesus personally. So I need him to teach me, and I want to learn about him through everything that I'm doing, but then also sharing about him and teaching others.
Like, what are you seeing? Is there any more? You said some of the best wrestlers have been Christians. Like, is there anything like in the sport across the country or anything like in this region, like with this team or anything? Like, is there anything you're seeing from like a faith perspective that's like changing or coming into it, or like where would you say the state of wrestling is with like in terms of like walking with Christianity?
I think it's strong.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people. Wrestlers are very passionate and they're hardworking people.
True.
And so when people stop wrestling, they don't like stop following the sport.
Yeah.
They're in the sport and they're serving, and especially those that have faith. So there's so many people that are serving the wrestling community in that regard, which has been really valuable. And still, we had Bible studies. I think we had a Bible study every night of when we were at the Olympics this summer. We had a Bible study every night, and I would say we had probably 20 people come.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and coaches, athletes, people on the staff.
And like, who starts that? Like, or who like?
This Jose Campo comes with us, and he worked with FCA Wrestling, and then we just all kind of work together, and different people teach and everything. So, I think wrestling is a great sport because it is humbling, and you're always searching within, and the great thing is you're always like reaching for something greater, and so there's this opportunity that comes where like I need more strength, I need more help here, this is hard, and then you're able to be like, all right, well, I can't do it myself, so I need something greater to help me.
For sure.
Yeah,
that's cool. Kind of like going off that with like legacy is a big word, like either athletes or just guys in general use. When you're at the end of your career, let's like ask this in 2 questions. When you're at the end of your career, and then maybe like at the end of your life or something, like what would you like? Someone's like, who was Kyle Snyder? Like, what would you want them to say?
Yeah.
And maybe how's that changed too? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how's it changed? before I came to Christ, I would have just wanted people to say I'm the best wrestler of all time. And it's undoubtedly, no one could even argue it. That's what I wanted. But now, just want to be, I want to be someone that people see the love of God through, that people see that someone that ran the race hard their whole life. They never stopped serving the Lord, but they always kept the same fire and enthusiasm throughout the whole life, which is only possible through the Spirit. And I was just reading devotional the other day, and it was talking about, the writer was talking about, he visited two people that were on their deathbed. And the first person was this lady who had cancer, and she was going to die in the next week. And he went in there expecting her to be sad or whatever. And she was just like pumped. Like, she was like, hey, I did everything the Lord wanted me to do. I was obedient to his commands, and I'm happy to go home and see him. And then the other guy was this man, and he was just grieving uncontrollably because he said that, I didn't do what God wanted me to do, and I was half-hearted in my approach. So I want to be give my full heart to God and let him do what he wants to do with my life.
And would you say there's anything specific in Scripture, any like books of the Bible, or any like verses in particular that have been like just kind of like strongholds and like times of like when you're cutting weight or just like going through just like grind of practice and stuff like that? Or
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm studying a lot of different parts of the Bible usually every day, so I wouldn't say but God is always speaking to me like through what I'm reading at that time. Like, it's always perfect, but I think couple verses that come to mind that I'm always thinking about when it comes to training is the first is Galatians 2:20, just being crucified with Christ and no longer living because he lives within me. And I just always remember that, because that's what I need to focus on every day is I'm not living anymore. Christ is living in me. I'm not living for my own will or my own pleasure. And if this is painful, it's just temporary. So we can push through this, and I need to rely on the Spirit to get me through. And then, I like when Jesus talks about the cost of following him. If anyone's not willing to deny himself, take up his cross and follow me, then he's not worthy to be my disciple. And because I think in America, I mean, I've traveled all over the world, and a lot of countries don't have this problem, but in America we have too much. We have an abundance, and it's very easy to get soft and soft in faith. I have everything I need. I don't need to trust in God for this, but really he's providing it all anyway. So just trying to remain humble and thankful and praise God for all the little things that he has done for me.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool. That's awesome. And kind of like the last question, just to wrap this up, like we have a bunch of guys that watch this podcast, and like, is there any piece of advice or anything you'd say to either young wrestlers out there or just guys in general that's like, like if you could go back to yourself when you were like right before, like when you're talking about like at Ohio State, like losing that first year, just the trial, that effect that had on you, like what would you say to guys out there going through stuff like that?
Yeah, well, two things I'm always reminding myself of. One is that God is love. So he's not trying to hurt me, but he's doing what is best for me. And love isn't a warm, fuzzy feeling, but love is a choice that he makes to always do what's best for me, even if it's going to be painful in the moment. So I remember that God is love. And then the next thing I remember is that God is sovereign. So he's in control of everything. And he really has to be both, because if he was just one or the other, then if he was just love and he was in control of everything, then how could I trust that what's happening is best for me? And if he wasn't love, but he was just in control, then I think he was pretty mean.
Yeah,
Like I think this is harsh stuff, So, but with both of them together, I can recognize that everything that's happening in my life is for my benefit, and it will turn out for good if I have faith. So I just need to keep faith in the Lord. And the other thing is, because you talked about purpose in the beginning, and I love purpose because I think that a lot of times people correlate their purpose with what they're doing. But for me, I have no greater purpose because I'm a wrestler and Olympic champion. I don't have a better purpose than a high school teacher or someone who works at Pizza Hut or whatever. You know what I mean? Like everybody has the same purpose in the eyes of the Lord, which is to, in my opinion, know Him, grow in His character, and serve Him and teach other people about Him. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. That's you're able to do that. And I talking a lot now, but that's what we're here for. I remember Billy Graham. Billy Graham. So he taught millions of people, right? And I remember one time listening to him, and they were asking about him and how he's talked to so many people. And he said, well, I'm just being faithful to God. He said, if God calls you to speak to just one person when you're on earth and you're faithful in doing that, then you've accomplished just as much as me, And I really like that because it is the same. Like we're all one body, and we're all called to work in different ways and speak to different people. And for some, it might be a lot with a big platform, but none of that really matters. It's just about being obedient to the calling.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's huge. Yeah, that's great. So cool. Well, thanks, Kyle. I think it's just cool. Like you're using your platform. Yeah, like David was called like a man after God's own heart. I think I would say the same thing about you. Just being faithful to what He's given you, and like being the best at that is like you're just allowing yours like, hey, this is God working me, not my own doing. So I appreciate you just being an example of that and what it's like to do everything with excellence for His glory. So that's awesome. So you have a few matches coming up. You said February. I'll let you say it.
Yeah, February 6th, I'm wrestling in Croatia, and February 25th, wrestling in Kazakhstan.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Busy February.
Yeah, for sure. Well, good luck with that. Hope the travels go safe. And well, thanks everyone for listening too. And really check this out. And Kyle's a great stuff to listen to and cheer him on, even though he's a Ohio State guy. So, but anyway, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Men of Iron podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. At Men of Iron, we exist to change a culture one man at a time, and we'd love to have you partner with us. So go to menofiron.org to see how you can get involved, or donate at menofiron.org/donate.